So now let's move on to our last session on the theme of startup ecosystem in global cities, case studies of New York and Berlin. So let's welcome our panelists onto the stage.
When it's over, then we'll be crowded. Yeah.
Mr. Jonathan Schulhof, New York City Economic Development Corporation, EVP and Head of Innovation Industries. Mr. Rainer Seider, Head of International Department for the Mayor of Berlin. And the session is moderated by Ms. Keiko Yanai, Trade and Investment Queensland, Australia, Japan Office, Director for Research Partnership. So, Ms. Yanai, the stage is yours.
ありがとうございます。皆さんこんにちは。Welcome to today's panel discussion on startup ecosystems in global cities. We are here to explore major cities, fostering dynamic startup environments, and what we can learn from your experiences. Our focus today will be on two vibrant cities. New York City, a thriving tech hub. Berlin, Europe's startup powerhouse. Both recognized for innovative private public sector initiatives. So joining us today are two distinguished panelists who play a pivotal role in shaping this ecosystem from the public sector perspective. Before introducing them, I would like to briefly introduce myself. My name is Keiko Yanai, and I'm with Trade and Investment Queensland, Australia, Tokyo office. And why am I here? Because as a moderator, because Queensland, Australia, and Tokyo Metropolitan Government have a long-standing cooperative relationship in a wide range of areas, including education, personnel exchange, and very recently, we signed an MOU to promote clean energy collaboration. And I'm excited to facilitate this discussion and learn from our panelists' insights and experiences.
So no one is you.
Now let me introduce our panelists. Mr. Jonathan Schulhof. He's the Executive Vice President and Head of Innovation Industries at New York City Economic Development Corporation. And Mr. Rainer Seider, the Head of International Cooperation, Governing Mayor of Berlin. So Jonathan and Rainer, would you like to say a few words to our audience?
Please. Well, I'm delighted to be here, so thank you for welcoming me. It's very familiar to be in Tokyo. I think we see a lot of similarities in the quality of life in the city here, related to the density of the city, the vibrancy of the communities that are here, the commitment to food and to lifestyle, culture, fashion. They all feel very familiar. So I feel very much at home here and looking forward to a good discussion. Thank you.
Well, welcome back, Jonathan.
Thank you.
Rainer?
Yeah, thank you for having me here today and the whole week, in fact. And I'm enjoying very much to be here for the third time in Japan. And I think it's a very, very interesting to have the combination of Tokyo, New York, and then the middle Berlin, or when you go over the Pacific, probably it would be New York in the middle, but anyhow, Tokyo is always in the middle, so I think it makes really sense to have those three cities together. And thanks also to Tokyo Metropolitan Government and Governor Keiko for making the Sushi Tech possible, but also for inviting us here for this week to Tokyo and giving us a chance to to connect to the ecosystem of Japan.
Well, thank you very much, both. So to start, could you please give us a brief overview of your city's startup ecosystem? What are some characteristics, the defining characteristics, and how does the public sector play a role in supporting and shaping that ecosystem? So perhaps, Jonathan, would you like to start?
Sure. So I think we can't speak about the startup ecosystem before speaking about the city itself and its economy. New York is a country in the geography of a city. Our economy is roughly the size of Italy's. So if we were a country, we would have the 9th largest economy in the world, with about $2 trillion of city GDP. And so within that kind of context, we have many large companies. 50 of the world's Fortune 500 companies are domiciled there. But we are also home to 250,000 small and medium-sized businesses, 1 in 8 of which was started in the last year. And we're a very young city, young at heart, for sure. I count myself there, but also young in fact. We have 1 million of our 9 million people are college or recent college graduates. We have over 100 universities. And so it is the youth and vibrancy of the city which lends itself to this startup culture. Now, that culture clearly, first and foremost, starts with tech, but it is the intersectionality of tech with every other industry that really drives its growth. And so, what do you need in order to have a vibrant ecosystem for companies? You need, first, if I'm the founder, customers. And New York is rich in customers. You need talent, and I've just spoken about the talent pool that's there. And the last is you need capital. And we have a robust financial market, but we have also a very robust market for venture capital. Today, 1,200 venture capital firms that are working in New York City, providing a significant amount of capital across categories. So it's, we're deep in a lot of different sectors, and it is really the diversity of our economy, of our people, the cultural backgrounds of our people that provide this fertile ground for the ecosystem that takes shape there.
I think the Berlin story is very different to the New York story, but that makes it exciting to be here for you because there is, compared to New York, there is not a strong economic basis. So Berlin has only 5% of the population of Germany and 5% of the GDP of Germany. So Berlin's economy is just average of Germany. So the economic powerhouses were traditionally out of Berlin. So the big companies, the big stock exchange companies were located in Bavaria, in Baden-Württemberg, in Hessen, in North Rhine-Westphalia, but not in Berlin. So when the wall fell, so within the 90s, there was a time of depression and nearly no economic power existed anymore. So it was a kind of whiteboard. And then there happened a very striking activity within this nothing or vacuum. Lots of creative people went from all over the world. And Berlin had never been an international city before, but since then, Berlin became a very international city. So talent-wise, it's very, very international now, and it's English-speaking. So we have in common with New York that we are both English-speaking ecosystems, but that's different to most ecosystems in Europe. So Paris is not an English-speaking ecosystem. Munich is not English-speaking. So Warsaw is not English-speaking. So I think if you want to come to Europe, the European Union, then I think Berlin is a good place because you can speak English there. And I think that's a comparative advantage of Berlin towards competitors in the city. Berlin has also a strong research infrastructure, many universities, and also many young people, so very much in common. And we give support structure also from the city of Berlin, so supporting startups in different ways. Seed investment, we have a investment bank Berlin that's focusing also on startups, co-investments. They co-invest with private VCs into startups, so that's one of the many activities. Another one is a startup grant that we give to young startups in Berlin. So we offer lots of activities and possibilities. But it's very important to know Berlin is a very open city, a very liberal city, and a tolerant city. And we have also, thanks to Brexit and thanks to Trump, we get international talents. But maybe that would be the next question for today.
Thank you both. I think both, are big cities, but some similarities and yet uniqueness of each city. So thank you so much for your introduction. And so in today's globalized world, the attracting international talent is crucial for thriving startup environment. So I would like to ask both of you, what initiatives are being implemented in your city to foster international cooperation and draw global talent? Jonathan?
Yeah, so first is New York tends to attract talent because it's an attractive place to live. So I have to begin by just saying we have the most spoken languages of any city in the world. Yes, we speak English, but we value the diversity of cultures that are there, over 200 languages spoken in New York. From there, it's really about people being able to find clusters of groups of companies of a scale that make their endeavor successful. And if there's one thing that New York has done, it's really to offer a connectivity among companies and talent pools to form ecosystems around the areas that we're seeing startup activity. And this is really the role that EDC views itself as playing, that we create the conditions for companies to settle, for there to be a vibrant conversation among talent. So this relates to meetups, conferences, different places where people have chance collisions around their industry, and importantly then plugging those groups into end customers. So those are the places where New York really distinguishes itself. We hear consistently the difference between New York and, let's say, comparisons to Boston or to San Francisco is they tend to be monoclonal cities. That is, they have a very strong tech sector or a very strong biotech sector, but they don't have the diversity, especially when we think of the intersections of these industries with clients in finance or advertising or media or sports, or pick a card, pick any industry. And so when we look at our startup ecosystem, we're really measuring how well it's doing at activating across a variety of industries. And that's what's so special about our ability to attract talent.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Rainer, would you like to go?
Yes, of course. I think similar to New York, it's more the Berlin as a city than the state, the government of Berlin that's attracting talents. So it's not on the initiatives of the Berlin government for attracting talents, but it's the dynamic of the city that attracts talents. So as I explained before, in the 90s, there were many international talents attracted to Berlin because there was nothing. It was cheap to live. Berlin was poor but sexy. But then people came, and because it was very easy to live and everything was open, And Berlin always offered, not officially, but as a city, to be part of the construction of the city. So you could come to Berlin, be Berliner, just deciding to be here, and with a very, very low amount of money, you could work in Berlin because the living costs were very cheap. So that was a moment when many creative people from US, from Scandinavian country, from Asia came to Berlin. And now Berlin is very international and also very diversity. And what is true for the talents, very strong diversity, strong LGBTQ community, women engagement. So that's all part, of course, international engagements. More than 50% of the founders of Berlin are not from Berlin, so not Germans, so they have a migration background. So it's a very fascinating ecosystem, but it's not a plan of the city of Berlin, but it's made by the ecosystem itself. And I think that's a fascinating point. And as in New York, the economy of the ecosystem is very diverse. So we are by far the number one in fintech in Berlin. Also, the financial center of Europe is Frankfurt, but there are no fintechs in Frankfurt. So 95% of all fintech investments are going to Berlin. But it's also strong in other topics, mobility, energy, so nearly AI, robotics, you find anything. And that's the reason. So it's a bit anarchic. So without the state, without many regulations, it's like a playing ground. It's easy to start, to do something, but it's also because the state is not so relevant in the game. And what is the newest trend for Berlin is space again. So within the next years, we will have a couple of 100,000 square meters new startup space in Berlin. So a couple of initiatives are there, private initiatives, who offer from former industrial sites new startup spaces. And I think the space component in Berlin is very crucial because we have that space. And you would not find it so easily in other ecosystems around the world because it's a space for offices and production. So it's not just offices, it's all industrial production, piloting for startups. That will be the strength of tomorrow for Berlin.
I just want to add one comment here because you remind me, there was a very interesting moment in time to demonstrate the city's ability to attract talent. If we look prior to COVID, traditionally, tech startups were told by their investors, we want you to be local, we want you to be together, and we tend to fund you in the places where we live. So there was a really strong bond that kept tech teams in a specific geography. But COVID blew all that up. Everybody was home, everybody was working over Zoom, and founders then took more control over where they wanted to live. And it was during that period that New York saw a massive influx of founders, mostly just voting with their feet when they were liberated from the restrictions that the tech funders had offered to them. They said, well, where do I want to live? And it's, again, the vibrancy of the city, the nightlife, the restaurants, the youth, the multiculturalism that drew them to the city. And so I think it's a real testament to what attracts people ultimately when they're given a choice.
And I think the topic of vibrant nightlife is also always true for Berlin as well. So we are a 24-hour city. And one of the crucial points of Berlin during the 2000s up to now is the techno ecosystem. So you should never underestimate the relevance of the big techno clubs in Berlin for international talents.
100%. We saw, I think, in the first wave of tech companies, people experimenting with new technology, and you saw New York distinguish itself really based on the intersection of the creative industries with these platforms to create new publishing methods, new companies across a variety of areas. AI is doing a similar thing, and I think Berlin is probably going to experience the same thing, which is it is dramatically lowering the cost for the creators to create new modes of businesses and bring them to scale. And so it favors geographies where you have this chance collision of industries and people are experimenting on how to use these technologies in a myriad ways, and the depth then to have capital and talent follow them into those industries. And I think that's what lends a vibrancy to the ecosystem, is that that cultural collision with the tech sector.
I think each city has its own strength, right? Do you see any change or the trend in the shifting the focus of the area of startups' interest?
So in Berlin, definitely. So the first wave of startups are the rocket internet startups in Berlin. So copycats and e-commerce, and that was very strong, especially until the COVID time. Then food delivery was very one of the main focus, and we had the best investment time during the COVID time in many startup ecosystems, including Berlin, for VC investments. Now we have, so to say, the trend towards more valuable startups. So we are much more interested in deep tech startups because we have a strong university system, strong research system, strong companies doing innovation in Berlin. So deep tech, hard tech, production is now in the heart of the ecosystem. We still, as I mentioned, we are very strong in fintech. But besides that, it's going more and more towards real production, to hardware, and to very highly sophisticated, innovative, science-based, research-based startups in Berlin. So, and that will be much more value-adding to Berlin and the world, and so in my opinion.
So we're doing all the same things. I would say, in addition, New York is the #1 market for healthcare delivery in the United States. We have 1 million people working in the healthcare delivery community, and we're home to many research hospitals. And a big push for the city has been to unlock the commercialization of intellectual property in healthcare. And so we've moved from, if we were to say this 10 years ago, 13 in the country in biotech funding to now #3. And for healthcare delivery startups, we're #1. And so we see a huge influx of companies looking to bring healthcare startups, biotech startups into the city. AI, obviously, a big category, intersectional with all the other industries that are using that technology, and we see that also, and again, in deep tech, as has been mentioned.
And I think the health tech topic is very interesting for Berlin as well, because we have a very interesting ecosystem with the Charité, which one is the oldest hospital, but it's also a university institute. So Charité is it's the biggest hospital in Berlin, and the University of Berlin for medicine. And so we have research, science, and care for people. And then we have an ecosystem on pharmacy, like with Bayer Pharmaceutics, but we also have Pfizer from New York, and we have Sanofi from Paris. So they are all in Berlin contributing to the ecosystem. And by the way, that is also one branch of cooperation, future cooperation with New York, but also with Boston. Because since 1 year, we have now the Cambridge Innovation Center in Berlin with a big hub. And of course, it's Cambridge, Massachusetts, and not Cambridge, UK. And so they are interlinking with those what we are already doing with Charité and Bayer, who are active in Boston or Cambridge and New York as well. So I think the health tech sector will be very crucial also for the development of the ecosystem of Berlin.
I know both, cities are very international, global, and diverse. But do you see in recent years any specific areas, regions in the world or countries, started, looking to your market? I mean, your cities.
I would say, every country, every city, when it's reaching a certain scale, is thinking then about growing beyond its own market borders. And so when that happens, it's a natural point to consider the United States as a growth market. And within the United States, New York feels most at home to most cultures on Earth, just because if you look at the scale of each of our communities and clusters of people, we are traditionally an immigration-friendly immigrant city. So it's a great place to come as a foreign entity to learn local customs and grow from there. And so we've seen that natural affiliation with many countries, and it's part of what we pride ourselves in New York. We're the home of the United Nations. It's not by accident. It's a place that feels at home to many around the world.
And also Berlin is not the home of the United Nations. I think the rest of what you're told is what we could say also for Berlin. But, and that's quite interesting, we could tell one country that's delivering most of the talents worldwide to Berlin, that's India. And that's true, that's thanks to Brexit and to Trump, which were UK and US were the traditional migration destinations for Indian talents. So there are 1.4 billion Indians, and there are many very, very well educated ones in programming, developing, so technical skills that are lacking in Germany. And once it was difficult to go to US and UK for visa issues and everything, they detected Berlin. They saw Berlin as an English-speaking ecosystem, and now there are master classes in Berlin for business and engineering where more than 50% of the students are Indians, and there are companies where more than 50% of the new employed developers and programmers are Indians. So, and there are startups or scale-ups who say we have to take care that we don't become an Indian company. So that's really a recent development. So since 2016, but it's a very fast development. So it's really easy to say, okay, in the first time it were Polish developers who were coming after the European Union's enlargement to Berlin. So in the 2015s, and now it's by far the strongest immigration group are Indians. And by the way, the Indians are the best paid migrants and even better paid than the average German employee in Germany. So that's because they are so qualified and they are so needed, so they're very well paid.
Well, actually, I have more questions in my mind, but I think I'd better stick to my notes here. Otherwise, we won't be able to finish all these questions. So now the hard one. Every startup ecosystem faces its set of challenges. So could you please share some of the key challenges your city has encountered and perhaps highlight a success story or two along with any valuable lessons learned? So perhaps, Rainer, would you like to go first now?
So with the problems, I have to start, and he can start with the advantages. No, of course, I think, so the challenges of Berlin's ecosystem is it's the international visibility. So Berlin is a tendency of anarchic city. So it's a good playground to test yourself, but it's not, so we don't have one big space or one big event in Berlin. So we don't have a Vivatech, for instance, as a French example. We don't have a Sushi Tech, and we don't have a Station F for the taking Paris again. Or London Tech Week, or Web Summit, or Slush. So that's a lack. So if you have to tell someone from Tokyo, for instance, when should I come to Berlin and what should I see in Berlin, the answer is not easy, because you can go anywhere when in the year and anywhere, because there's always something to see. We have a couple of very relevant events for investors, for fintech, for everything, but not the one big event where everybody assembles in Berlin, like Web Summit or Slush or VivaTech, and where it's very easy to meet all the people of the world who are interested in the city. So that's a challenge. But one success story is that from this year on, within 2 weeks, we will have a GITEX Europe edition in Berlin. GITEX Global is one of the biggest startup events in Dubai, so worldwide biggest, but it's situated in Dubai, working there for 40 years, and now they're starting for international concept. And they started in April, GITEX Asia in Singapore, and for Europe they've chosen Berlin as a place. And so we will have in 2 weeks, we will open, nearly exactly in 2 weeks, we will open the GITEX for the first time. And that might be a game changer for the visibility event-wise. And on the other hand, we will have, as I told, some very exciting new startup hubs in our ecosystems in Berlin that could be comparable to Station F in the future. So especially one that is very interesting because it's very much on production side, for piloting, for producing, for real startups to grow. And they have 150,000 square meters. It's a former Philip Morris production site, and Philip Morris is still the owner of the whole thing and the investor for that activities. But of course, the startups and production has nothing to do with tobacco industry. But that 150,000 square meters, it's nearly 5 times of Station F space. So you can see it's enormous, and I've visited this year, and it's really eye-blowing to see those options and possibilities that can be offered. So we will have GITEX, and we will have Neuland, it's called, but we have CIC, as I call it, Cambridge Innovation Center, and other big players who will strengthen the international visibility of Berlin.
Thank you. Jonathan?
So I think the challenges for New York are also some of its blessings. So when you have as diverse and as vibrant of an economy, then the trick is to provide the connective tissue for people to be able to find each other. So we have 500,000 people who are working in tech. Some of them are working at tech companies, and some of them are working in other industries in technology also. And so what we try to do is bring together these ecosystems so that people can find each other. And this is part of the role that we play as EDC. This same story is mirrored in the biotech arena or in the green economy, and then especially when we get into niche subjects. So AI is an interesting subject. We have 40,000 people working in AI, but you can't point to an AI hub or an AI geography within the city. And so our challenge then is to pull these groups together. And we do that by establishing different varieties of programs and hubs to collect people, to activate them through conferences, to create tech meetups and different programming to bring these industry groups together. And so we've been very successful over the years at doing that. That's how we got started in the technology space, and we've built many different centers for tech groups to gather in different locations around the city. We're doing similar things in the biotech arena. We have clusters of biotech in different regions, often anchored by universities that are working with us as partners in those categories. And so it's the diversity and the scale of the city which you have to make sure that you attend to creating enough linkages among the industry players in order to be successful. But that's been something that we've been good at. The other aspect, I think, relates to when you're a destination that people want to come to, you need to keep up pace by building enough housing for people to accommodate the demand. And I would say the biggest questions we get from firms is about that, is about making affordability and an opportunity for people to come. The flip side of affordability is there's a reason why the demand is high. It's because that's where the talent is. And it makes it easier to hire. And so we deliver a lot of value to our residents in jobs. The city is now at historically low levels of unemployment. And we've seen immigration into the city. So our population is actually growing, which means that we need to attend to those things, but it also means that we're delivering opportunity for people to live there, which is why they're choosing to do it. So these are, again, a blessing and a curse.
And maybe adding to that, another challenge for Berlin is the welcoming culture, because we don't have the long-term experience of New York and welcoming new talents. So many talents deal with problems like housing, of course, maybe not as much as in New York. So we have lots of location space for offices and production, but not for housing. But also with the bureaucracy or the notary for founding a company, finding a bank account, and so we have lots of those challenges, but we are working on that. But some of the problems are European made, many of them are German made, and so that limits the possibility to help. But we try to offer more one-stop agencies or partners who can offer advice for those problems, because most problems can be solved. But for talent coming from abroad, it's the first impression might be, oh, it so takes everything too long, it's so bureaucratic. But we can help, and we do help in those topics as well.
Well, and I want to thank you, Rainer, for mentioning that, because we do very similar things. We view this experience, I was told by someone at Japan Society, the word which stuck with me, of omotenashi, that we are really looking to be a concierge to make it easy for companies to come and be successful in navigating the city. And so that's the work that I do, that my colleague Anne-Sophie, who's here, raise your hand, Anne-Sophie. Yeah. So if you're thinking about New York, we have many programs to welcome you, to help you find your way in the ecosystem, meet partners, find real estate, navigate visas, navigate business formation questions. These are all the activities that EDC prides itself in doing, and we have a whole team dedicated to that effort.
Well, Jonathan, while we were, in the waiting room, you talked about your, Economic Development Corporation owns, huge assets,
Yeah.
And I was listening, and I was wondering, I have to ask this question to both of you. Both of you, your cities, were so blessed with immense, resources. And so I would like you to give us the advice for those smaller, the cities, which sort of struggles to establish this startup ecosystems. And I know quite a number of, those cities, including that I now work for the Australia, Queensland state, and there are some cities which tried to establish the hubs, tech hubs, and life science hubs and all that. But the lack of resources or lack of whatever you are blessed with, those resources. So could you please give us the advice to much smaller, maybe less unfortunate, the cities? So from, the Berlin and from New York.
Well, New York's method, and I was asked this by the vice governor earlier today, New York had the foresight to move a significant pool of assets into an independent organization, which is the Economic Development Corporation. And the reason that's important is it provides an opportunity to make long-term investment beyond the ups and downs of any political cycle. That you have assets that have been committed to supporting economic growth, and that you can then hold out your assets for partnership, for private partners to become partners with the public interest and finance the development of new trade zones, new buildings, new infrastructure, that you are always doing it in a way where you're balancing the public interest, but you're making it interesting for private investment. And this is what the role of EDC does. We are an independent entity, and we can therefore make long-term commitments to partners that stand the test of time. And I think that has been a critical recipe to the success.
Thank you for that.
So there are two answers. The first answer is easy, but it's not very helpful. That would say you can't force an ecosystem. As I told for the example of Berlin, so many things happened because of the historical situation and the basis of Berlin. It's not to copy. You can't just build a wall around your town, wait 40 years to tear the wall back down, and then have a splendid ecosystem. So you can't copy the system of Berlin. But I think in my vision, the next big startup ecosystem won't be a local one, like the Silicon Valley as a prototype of startup ecosystems, but it will be an internationally connected one, so a global ecosystem. So I think it's important for Berlin, but also for all the smaller hubs, to see what is my USP, and then to offer international context to the startups, so then that they can get the talents, the financing, markets, research, innovation from all over the world. And that's at the basis of our international cooperation, and that's my job. So we did Asia Berlin. Asia Berlin is an initiative to connect the Berlin startup ecosystem to Asia, so including Tokyo, but also Jakarta, Singapore, India, Beijing, Shanghai, Shenzhen. So we offer Berlin startups bridges towards Asia and vice versa. And that's interesting because then it's much easier for a Japanese company to come to Berlin using an initiative like Asia Berlin, like the Asia Berlin Summit, like our delegation trips, outgoing, incoming. So always both directions, and it's not just internationalization of Berlin's startups, but also bringing talents and startups from Asia to Berlin. So, and that's something that every city can do. So looking for partners for the city, thinking in a global way, training English knowledge, and I think that's crucial also for the Japanese startup ecosystem, but also connecting to the world, offering infrastructure to meet people, because we see from a Berlin perspective, Asia is far away. So the Berlin startups normally don't consider going to Asia. They might get money from the Vision Fund or from the SoftBank or from Hong Kong, wherever, but they don't think that Asia is an interesting market. They think it is an interesting market, but they're afraid because it's far away, different culture, so people are afraid of going to Asia. But then offering personal connections, offering traveling events, connecting the people to the world, offers options to lower the barriers and raise curiosity, finding friends, and that's rather easy in the startup ecosystem because you speak the same language, if you speak English, but also you have the same concepts. Everybody knows what an ecosystem is, and if you speak in Manila or Tokyo or New York or Berlin, ecosystem of a startup consists of startups, VCs, family offices, state regulations and support. So everything is the same concept. So it's easy to connect there. And I think that's an option every city has, seeing your USPs and looking how you can contribute to the global ecosystem and what you need from the world to make grow your ecosystem yourself. Of course, there's no general concept for that, but the openness to the world and offering infrastructure to connect to the world, that's the key, I think, for every city worldwide.
Well, thank you, Rainer. I think you already answered to my the last final question, because I was going to, talk about future, the looking ahead. So what are your expectations for further collaboration with Asia, in particular with Japan? So I think more or less, Rainer, you've answered now my questions, and of course you will have a chance to talk. But Jonathan, any the thoughts for the future?
Yeah, so we've signed 2 MOUs already here. We're looking at delegations of companies that will begin coming to New York. And we'd like to create a bridge between the 2 geographies in order to make companies successful coming to expand into the United States, and similarly offering opportunities for companies in the US to extend their reach into Asia through Japan. So this is a very interesting market for us. We see a lot of similarities given the density of the city, the kinds of startups that are here addressing the city's needs, and so we very much look forward to those collaborations.
Thank you so much.
And maybe from a Berlin perspective, we see that there's a shift of innovation from the west to the east. So also US is doing very well, but we can see the numbers, the growth, economic growth, but also the innovation, what's happening in China, what's happening in India, and in Japan. So you can't avoid that. You can't just go around, and you can't just, like maybe 20 years ago, thinking, so making barriers, then you would help your own economy. You have to be open because the innovation is made now in Asia. And the idea of Asia Berlin is making Berlin a part of the Asian startup ecosystem. So not just producing for the Asian market, but taking part of the innovation that happens here. And that's my perspective also for Asia, and it's also especially for Japan. And that's the reason why we have a strong cooperation with the Tokyo Metropolitan Government as well. And we are fostering the cooperation and bringing more startups from Tokyo to Berlin, and of course, and vice versa, making delegation trips from Berlin to Tokyo, because again, connecting Japan to Germany is very important, and it's very specific because, as I told, it's an island, Japan, and not everybody speaks English. So we try to overcome those bridges, but of course, people here who don't need earphones are our best partners to work with us in the future.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you both for sharing your valuable insights. I think as we look ahead, there's significant potential for deeper connections with cities like Tokyo. And so let's keep the dialogue going and explore ways to foster more globally connected and resilient startup communities. So thank you very much. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. And if you would like to stay in contact, I'm quite active on LinkedIn. I know that's not the favorite social media in Japan, but if you would like to, we can stay friends and connected on LinkedIn. Thank you.
Thank you. 皆さんありがとうございました。
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks to our panelists and our moderator.
Thank you.
So let's send them with a big round of applause. どうぞ大きな拍手でお送りください。
ありがとうございました。
Thank you so much.